I'm Rachel,
I'm Hannah.
and this is the You Talking to Me podcast. Welcome back to another lovely morning or evening or afternoon or 2 a.m. experience with me and Hannah. We are talking about the Disney Pixar film Soul. Today is the first day of Black History Month, and so
Woohoo!
we thought that Pixar's first movie starring a Black male lead would be the perfect film to kick off this wonderful month. What do you think, Hannah?
Not just a male Black lead, a Black lead in general, I believe, is the first Pixar film to feature a Black leading character, which is a huge deal. Before we get into this podcast, I do want to say thank you to my friend Hayden for allowing me to use your amazing microphone. Let us know, people, what you think of the audio on my end. Does it sound different than before? Do we like it?
Yeah, also, some of these podcasts we will say are recorded out of order, so the audio will fluctuate a little bit in the next coming weeks and months as we get used to having mics and purchasing them and just trying to improve the overall experience for all of you, because trust me, we hear it too. When I'm editing, I hear it too, folks. Don't worry. We're not over here just ignoring the fact that it doesn't sound super good.
Yes, and we all start somewhere. And so at first we didn't have microphones, but we are definitely looking into investing in better audio quality for not only our own purpose, but of course for you guys.
Yeah, so sit back, ignore everything I say, and enjoy Hannah's audio. Hit us with the recap, Hannah.
All right, I'm going to give you a rundown of what the movie Soul is all about. I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you already know that there would be spoilers involved, but I'm just going to put that back out there that if you have not watched the movie and don't want a spoiler, then I guess stop listening right here. Soul takes you on a journey of the life of a Black man named Joe, who lives in New York City. He is a middle school band teacher who loves jazz. One day he lands his dream jazz gig, and when he wasn't watching where he was walking while on the phone, he falls down a manhole.
Yeah.
He is lying and goes to another dimension where he is now a soul waiting in line to reach the afterlife in a place called the Great Beyond. He figures out what he is in line for and does what he can to escape going to the Great Beyond. Joe the Soul ends up in the youth seminar where he meets many counselors named Jerry, and he lies his way into becoming a mentor. He is supposed to mentor a soul called 22 to get her to Earth. 22 and Joe actually get to Earth, but 22 is now in Joe's body, and Joe is in the body of a cat. Joe has to teach 22 why living is so great, while also going on a journey to get back into his own body so he can go play the jazz gig. Joe eventually makes it back into his body and plays his first gig. He realizes that he is not sure if this was all that he dreamed of when he dreamed of playing jazz. Joe, now the soul again, goes back to the youth seminar because he is supposed to go back to the great beyond. But first he wants to make sure that 22 will go back to Earth and start her own journey of living. Joe the soul goes inside of 22's mind and hears all the terrible things people, including himself, have said about her over the thousands of years she has been at the youth seminar. He tells her that she is ready for Earth and she can do it. Joe the soul gets back in line to the afterlife, and then one of the Jerrys comes and gets Joe to tell him that he is getting another chance at life on Earth. Joe is ecstatic and decides that he doesn't know what he is going to do for the rest of his life, but he knows that from now on he is going to make sure to live every moment to the fullest.
Awesome. I think that is the first time we've done a recap that was not 20 minutes long. So, congratulations, Hannah. We did it. We made it through. I was very shocked about this film. I went into it kind of seeing a trailer about, what this was going to be about. I knew that Joe was going to turn into some soul of some sort, like a little blob or whatever, but I wasn't sure why or where he was going to be or the fact that he was dead. I will just say that when I saw he was on his way to the great beyond, I was taken very much aback and glad that I was not a child watching this.
Yeah, I did not know what this movie was about. Going into the movie, I knew that it was about a black man. I knew it was called Soul. I assumed that there would be music involved, and I had been told that something profound happens at the end of the film. That was all I knew. And I watched it, and I was surprised at the heaviness of the topic that was covered because I can't say I've ever seen an animated film about death.
I mean, most Disney films have death as a pretty big aspect that happens to someone close to the main character. We've got Bambi, we've got Frozen. I mean, a lot of Disney Pixar movies have it happen in their film, but it's never about the person dying. And I mean, that is great that they're trying new things. I was just like, I think it would have freaked me out a lot if I was much younger, maybe like even 10 watching this. Not that 10-year-olds shouldn't watch it. I mean, it's very appropriate. There's some scary moments and stuff, so watch it with a trusted adult that knows what you can handle. But I just can say that I was definitely, it's like the first 10 minutes of the film that he's dead.
Yeah,
I thought when he went through the manhole and turned into a blob, I thought he was like, I don't know, went into just a different dimension in general. Not that he had died by falling into that manhole.
right. And I think that that is sort of the point of him turning into this like iridescent sort of blob because it's not so scary. For me personally, I am the type of person who gets scared very easily, and I did not think that this film was scary at all. I thought that the way they presented everything was really light and everything was like talked about in a way that was not scary. I don't think I would have been scared as a child. Something that scared me from a childhood movie, which I believe is also Pixar, was Monsters Inc. when like the people were inside the door and then they shred the door and that's how they die. I literally cried and screamed in the movie theater. I remember that. That was scarring. I do not think that this film would have had the same effect on me just because of the way it's animated and the music in the background.
My biggest moment that I thought was scary, like the concept, yes, they're dead or whatever, or in the in between life, like on their way to death, wasn't the scary part. I think right away when he's in the line, like conveying up to heaven or the great beyond or whatever anyone believes, I thought that would have been like a little weird because I'm realizing, oh my gosh, these people are dead. And I think I would have been a little freaked out. But the part that really scared me was the lost souls. There are these characters that were called lost souls where they're living people, but they are so in the zone of their monotonous life, they're not happy with what they're doing, that they are kind of blinded by the life going on around them. So the animated form of them in this in between place that most of the movie takes place in is they're like big like sand creatures with creepy tentacles and like one eye that's a flashlight or something. It that freaked me out. I will say that was the scary part of the movie. And it comes up a couple of times. So I think if I was younger, because I watch kids sometimes at a prep school, and we watched Mulan, and the opening sequence, and it's rated G, the opening sequence is real scary for them. So I think that aspect is too much for young kids. But I'm not allowed to watch scary movies anymore because my mom stayed up one too many times with me all night after I saw one and basically banned them from me. And you know what? She was right.
I guess I did forget about those lost souls. Those I would say would be scary to a kid, probably. But it's also a good representation of it's people who have become just so obsessed with one thing in their life. There's a man who, for example, is using a metal detector and he's scanning the ground trying to find more things. And he's just so hyper focused on finding more that he doesn't even realize what's happening in the world around him. And they talk about how to get out of being a lost soul, but we won't spoil that part. That part you have to find in the movie.
Yeah. I did like the themes. I think this was one of the Pixar movies, though, that I wasn't moved to tears or almost tears. I was very happy for 22 when she got to go to Earth and that Joe got to live again, redo some of, or not redo, but kind of have a fresh start from where he's at now. But I was not, over here clutching tissue boxes and sobbing madly into my boyfriend's sweater. So I think that is my main critique of the film is when I watch a Pixar film, I want to be right there, at least just almost tearing up. I was with like Onward. I was with a lot of their newer stuff, Frozen. I mean, I get sad and happy multiple times throughout it. But yeah, any animated Disney or Pixar film, I want to be just my throat clenching up because I'm trying not to cry.
I guess, yeah, you're right. In other films, I definitely get emotional sometimes, but this one, I don't think I felt super emotional, except it felt emotional in a different type of way. Like it wasn't sad necessarily, but it was emotional in a sense of it makes you think about life. And so you're thinking about, are you living like these lost souls? Are you living like Joe? Are you living like you're scared to live your life? How are you living your life? Are you living or not really living?
I agree. It's kind of a call to action type of movie. Like, look and reflect on yourself and try to live each new day after seeing this film without just being blinded by work. Your family's important, your passions are important, the things you just enjoy about every day. They had this, those little helicopter things that fall off of trees. That was this huge thing that 22 and then Joe were just enamored by when they got to live life fully and just engage in the things around them. So even if you are living and working a monotonous job, maybe you're a middle school band teacher and you hate it. Maybe you are a hedge fund manager like one of the guys in here and you hate it. But even if you hate it, you can still do those things. They're not saying quit your job and live on the street and just enjoy the flowers. I mean, people do, unfortunately, in this world need a job to live, but you can enjoy the things that are around you and not just be so focused on how terrible your job is, how terrible your life is. You can start opening your eyes to the world around you. It's kind of the main theme of this movie, I think.
Yeah, and just looking for the beauty that happens in life. It's not all about like the big moments or the big things. It's not only about what your passion is in life, but it's about the people and the places and the sense, like all of your senses. It's about the way things smell and taste and feel. How does the sun feel on your skin? How do you feel when you get into your cozy bed at night? How does it feel to talk to your loved ones or give them a hug? It's not just about, oh, I got a promotion at work.
I did like the theme, and maybe that was their point, not to make us cry, but to make us just really reflect on our own lives. What did you think about the animation of this movie?
I thought the animation in this movie, okay, well, it's really almost like it's two movies, if we're being honest, because there's animation for, so there's the youth seminar and Joe's life in New York City. The New York City animation I thought was really good, really realistic, especially when it came to there were pictures of like Earth or there was pictures of the universe itself, like the constellations or Milky Way, or I don't know what it's called. I'm not an astronomy person, but I thought the animation was good. Sometimes I thought it looked a little funny, but mostly I thought it was good. And then in the youth seminar world, it was so calming. I don't know. That would be like the best way I describe the way it looked because it was they had to create a world that no one's really created before. So how did they come up with the way it looked? So that was just interesting to me, and I really liked the fact that there was this duality, that there were these two places that seemed so different. The New York was bold and full of lines and is noisier, as New York is, and then in this sort of in-between world it was lighter and there weren't really lines and everything just seemed to flow together, like very peaceful, calming. That's what I thought. What did you think of it?
I thought some of the stuff in the youth seminar was a little trippy though. The Jerry's, like when they would spin around, that freaked me out. They remind me of a Picasso painting, right? Where it's like lines. Maybe it's not Picasso. I'm so sorry. I did not take art history. My bad. But it's the ones where the faces, they look like faces, but they're a little abstract, the noses are weird shapes and the eyes are not in all the right places, and it's just lines. They're just white lines and you can see through them and whatnot. And then when they like turn to go the other way, they literally are 2D. Like they're not 3D. And it would just, oh, it was so trippy, but it was soothingly trippy. I wasn't thrown off by it, but I was like, whoa, that's really cool animation. I loved one of the parts that really stick out to me are watching the people play the instruments. So watching Joe play the piano, watching Dorothea Williams, who's this fancy jazz musician in the thing that Joe was going to play a gig for, watching her play the saxophone, and watching Connie, one of the children in the band, play the trombone, which is what I played, and her actually playing real notes and the right positions on the trombone. We love some animators who do their research. Stan. It was just so cool because, one, it looked very real. Like looking at Joe's fingers as he's playing the piano, I was like, those are real fingers. Like there's no way that is animated. Or the shine on the saxophone. I am so blown away by animators. I could never. I appreciate their work, good job. Y'all are doing a thankless job.
Yeah, actually, a fun fact about those little people in the youth seminar, the Jerrys, the artist, I watched a little thing on Disney Plus. Oh, by the way, this movie is on Disney Plus if you are looking for it somewhere. And there was like a little clip after the movie. They have things about the movie, little videos, and I watched them. And the artist was saying the way that she created those was actually with wires, and she put wires up and kind of made these faces and stuff. And then the way the light shined on the wires and created the shadows is what she based the characters off of, those Jerrys. And then for how Rachel said the fingers on Joe looked so real, all of Joe's actions are based on Jon Batiste, who is a jazz composer and arranger who also played a lot of the songs for the movie and wrote a good handful of them too. So his actions are exactly Jon Batiste's, and he is that living artist who loves jazz, and it is definitely brought to life in the movie through Joe.
Yeah, the animation, you just look at any square inch of the screen and you are seeing some animation geniusness. The people for Disney, the people for Pixar, they do not skimp out when it comes to this stuff. So I was really amazed by that. Real quick, because I forgot to talk about it in the last segment about the story. When Joe goes into the zone and goes back into the youth seminar and everything, he then is going to go to the great beyond, right after he gives his Earth pass back to 22 so that she can go live her life. He's about to go to the great beyond. I turned to my boyfriend and I was like, did Joe just kill himself? You know what I mean? Like when you think about what's happening on Earth, he had to have been dead then for him to go to the great beyond.
I think that the way it works out is because Terry had been in charge of making sure that all the souls were accounted for, and he knew that the number was off. The number was off because he knew Joe was dead, but Joe like was on this adventure and it was only working out because he had 22's pass to Earth. So I think that because of that, he didn't actually kill himself. It was more just like almost like a dream, is sort of what I was feeling. Even though he was living for that time period and doing what he wanted to do, I think it was like on borrowed time or something. Like it wasn't really, I don't know how to describe it. All I know is that this whole movie takes place over one day.
Which is nuts, actually, when you think about it. Like, it feels like it's such a short amount of time, but the movie is only like 2 hours or less. So it's like, yeah, I know 12 hours went by, but that doesn't seem like enough time. Like, it feels so much longer because we're so used, especially to films happening over days. And it just seems normal because, all the boring stuff is cut out of films, but a lot of the quote unquote boring stuff was kept in this movie, even though they were on an adventure the whole time. And it was exciting, but it was still like kind of boring stuff. Like 22 was Joe trying pizza for the first time. Like that's not a huge adventure for anyone else, but it's very big for 22, who's never even walked before, which was hilarious. Oh my gosh, the animation when 22 was Joe for the first time and Joe was a cat, I, no joke, almost peed myself laughing. It was so funny because the cat and Joe's body could talk to each other when 22 and Joe were in them. They could understand each other in English and in each other's voices. But then someone else on the outside would just hear Joe's voice as Joe and this cat being like, meow, meow, meow. It's so funny.
It was very funny, and I don't think I loved a moment more than the first time 22 was trying to walk. And in Joe's body, she face plants onto this chair or bench or something. And then she's just like wobbling everywhere. And it was amazing. And I thought that the animation, like you said, is just amazing. I know earlier I said something about how some parts I didn't think the animation was great. I didn't mean that like overall. I think overall the animation was amazing. It'd just be like sometimes every once in a while, like something that would seem easy to be animated seemed like it wasn't real. Like I could tell the way the stores looked that those weren't real. But then other aspects like the clothing or the way they were moving or when the fireworks were happening or when the earth was happening, it literally, I was like, if you told me that was the real thing right now, I would believe you 100%.
Well, and these animators are capable of making it look almost real because in Finding Nemo, they had to reanimate the ocean floor in the whole movie because people said it looked too real and no one would believe that it was animation.
If you guys were curious who does the voices, Jamie Foxx is the voice of Joe Gardner, and the voice of 22 is Tina Fey.
This brings us to our next segment, fun facts with Hannah and Rachel. Comment or email us with a better name because we don't got one.
I have a fun fact about this film. This film, actually, the last 7 weeks of production were during COVID, so they had to finish the editing process from home, the editing and production process from home. There's people that have children at home and whatever, and it was either 42 or 48% of the movie they completed in 7 weeks from home.
The amount of things that they needed to do and they did it from their home offices instead of, in the big studio collabing with each other. Oh my gosh, that probably took a long time, having to either video chat with somebody and show them what you've done or share screen or, there's probably some way, I'm sure they're all connected on the same type of like, I have access to some folders on your computer, blah, 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 so that they could pull it up and look at what you've done. But just the amount of time that it probably took to look at it rather than, hey, Hannah, want to come over and look at this section that I edited? What do you think? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, Hannah, can you go log on and look at it? Or can I email it to you or whatever they did? That is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, and if you run into internet issues or whatever, they obviously got over this huge obstacle that they had to work with. And then on top of working from home. Like I said, some of them had kids, and then, there's this whole giant thing called coronavirus happening. So there's the stress of that. It's just amazing that they completed this movie and that it turned out so amazingly.
I agree.
Another fun fact I have is that a white man wrote this film, but he had a cultural trust of African American employees to help make sure the writing was authentic. This cultural trust was a team of people who talked about their life and their experiences and how things were. So they really went into the writing process with him, and they wanted to make sure everything was as authentic as possible for a man living through the time period he did, in the place he did, with the background he would have.
Well, and I actually saw a thing online that commented very highly about the barbershop scene, about the men's hairdos in it. They were commenting about the fades in the hair and how they definitely must have had black men on set for the animation, approving of it and telling them or doing it. I mean, like, I don't know all of the animators, I don't know who all worked on this, but there's a lot of high praise online for that scene in specific, which is so small, but it had such a big impact, the scene in general and the animation of the scene and the representation that it showed.
Right, because I loved the barber shop scene. I thought that that was very special, and what unfolded during that scene was very special. And, for me personally, being a white person, I'm not thinking of this barber shop having these special types of hairstyles that would fit my hair or whatever. I'm not seeing myself represented on the screen in that barbershop, but I can't imagine what it would feel like to someone who is finally seeing themselves represented on the screen.
Yeah, and just the simplest of things as accurate hairstyles that you would get at a barbershop, and I really thought that was an interesting aspect that, like Hannah said, I'm obviously not thinking about. I can walk into any hair cutting salon, the cheap ones, the really expensive ones, and they all know what to do with my hair. But a not so fun fact of this movie, and a couple that have the same problem, is that this movie, along with a Disney animated movie and a Blue Sky animated movie, Blue Sky did Rio, I believe, is that they all had a film that starred a black character, and within that movie, each of them, the black character was transformed into something inhuman. So we have Tiana from The Princess and the Frog. Obviously, she and Prince Naveen are transformed into frogs for a good length of the movie. Then we have Spies in Disguise, which I have not seen, but that is a Blue Sky film that came out in 2019. And the black secret agent in there becomes a pigeon. And then we see in this movie, Soul, that this black man, Joe Gardner, is transformed into like a soul blob of some sort. And so it's kind of interesting. I've seen it on the internet a lot. There's actually a petition up there on change.org that says to stop animation trope that dehumanizes black characters. And it's happened in a lot of films, not just with black characters, but other non-white characters. We've seen it in The Emperor's New Groove. Cusco is transformed into a llama. And Brother Bear, where a lot of Inca and Alaska Native human protagonists spend a lot of their time as animals throughout the film. I mean, I didn't realize this, obviously. Hannah hasn't really noticed that this trope is very common because we are not looking at it from non-white perspectives.
Because we can't. We
Exactly.
are white individuals, and so we have grown up in this whitewashed America where it's kind of been maybe unintentionally taught to us that being white is the norm and being white is the superior, and being really a straight white man is the most superior thing you can be. But that's not what America's about. That's not how it should be. It should be that there's diversity and there's all different types of people, and there's men and women and non-binary folks, and there's people of all different religions and skin tones, and we are not some monotone society. We are a mirage of colors and things, and that's what makes America beautiful, is the diversity.
And diversity doesn't have to be a bad word. It's not a bad thing to see people different from yourself. Well, that wraps up this week's podcast.
Yeah, and don't forget to email us if you have any suggestions for movies you would like us to watch. Leave us a nice review, subscribe to our podcast, or if you are listening on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit the little notification bell to make sure you're notified when we post.
Our Instagram is youtalkintome.podcast. Follow us on there. We post lots of fun photos and stories and whatnot. You will always know when our next podcast is coming out and what we will be reviewing and talking about. Email us at youtalkintomepodcast@gmail.com. We are on a lot of podcast streaming sites. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Pocket Casts. We're all over the place. I haven't even heard of half these places. So if that's what you listen to, we're probably on it. Follow us on there, review us, leave us good comments, give us critiques if there's something you don't like. Please let us know how you like Hannah's new microphone. Again, thanks Hayden for letting us borrow it.
Yes, thank you, Hayden. Also, if you follow us on Instagram, there is a link in our bio where all of the links to where we are streaming are hooked. And sometime on Instagram, we're probably going to ask you guys to ask us questions. And throughout different podcasts, we will answer random questions you guys may have for us.
Yes, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I'm Rachel.
I'm Hannah.
And this was the You Talkin' to Me podcast.
Bye.
Bye.